Oh, dear God. Have I been talking to myself this whole time? Oh, oh Lord. I'm sitting there talking, doing my intro because I'm such a professional here and talking to you all. And then I see this little thing that says, you're not part of the stream. You need to click this. I'm like, huh, wonder what happens if I click this. I am so new to this live thing. I like doing my videos when I'm, winding down at the end of the day and all of my other stuff is done and then putting it there. So it's right there for y'all in the morning and you can listen to it in your commute. Hi, Deepak Mocktail. How are you, my gorgeous friend? I wanted to let you know that your little friend Boo Boo here was up here. He was going to co host with me. I had a nice fresh glass of water that he thought looked really neat too. Hi, Possum Wrangler. And so I said, Boo, do you want some water too? It looks so good, huh, honey? And I showed him how good and cold it looked. And so he stuck his paw in. So I was like, oh, I'll put it down and let him have it. Well, he just looked at it and then knocked it over. So I'm cleaning that up too. Of course, I'm a slave to my cats. That's the way that it is. It's the way that it is. Let me get you an invite here, Possum Wrangler. And Deepak, thank you so much because I noticed when I talked to you and you didn't respond. That's how I noticed that I wasn't being heard. So thank you so much for supporting me here. And let me see here. Let me get an invite. And I'm going to send that invite. Let me see if I do it this way. No. Possum Wrangler, try that, honey. See what happens if you click that. Deepak, do you have cats? I forget. Oh, you guys, I have long haul COVID. I had COVID induced meningitis the first time I had COVID 2 years ago. So I have aphasia. So the words are there and I know what I want to say, but even if I'm looking straight at you, I can say December, even though I'm talking about something completely different. So it's kind of like when I watch Frosty the Snowman get off the train and he's like, Happy birthday. It's the way it is every day. And so sometimes when I'm talking, I stop. My brain jams up. And so when I go back and I listen to my recordings, I can hear me doing it. So in my recordings, please, if you need to, I won't be offended if you need to speed me up to 1.25 and whatnot. So when those brain gaps get me, it flows more smoothly. Possum Wrangler, are you here, lady? Let me add you to this.
I'm
Hey,
here. Can
lady.
you hear me?
I can, my love. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
Great, thank you. And as I was talking to myself here, I was saying, and I will say it again, that I think one of the good things that's going to come out of this, I would like to start cultivating good things to come out from all of this pain. And one of the good things is that I see that this is going to give you those first steps to start your own platform. I see you as an amazing creator with amazing potential, and hopefully through this stream we can get your sub count up so we can get you to start getting those views, and then that's going to start putting your videos in when you create them into the feed.
I've wanted to start a channel for a while, certainly not about this stuff.
Right,
But
right.
um I don't know, I sometimes find that I think my opinions aren't necessarily important, and then I hear others say something different and I'm like, well, maybe people would be interested in what I had to say. So I think this is a very good, being on your panel has been a very good first couple of steps for me. I've been on a couple other panels before discussing the same topic we discussed the last time. Um,
Okay.
and then I've been on one other one discussing Pete the possum. But,
Okay.
my interests are so varied um, in real life as compared to like if somebody saw my watch history on YouTube, they'd be like, how does this make any sense?
Right.
I think a lot
Well,
of us are like that.
I think so too. Deepak, so Deepak, I want to see pictures of your beautiful, gorgeous black Bombay boy kitty cat because when you are loved by a boy cat, when that boy cat accepts you as his, I mean, you'll have to be his 24/7, which is fine. Fine. The most possessive boyfriend you'll ever have is a boy cat. I mean,
See, I've
they're
never owned
just
a
so
boy cat.
loving.
I've always been scared to own a boy cat because
Yeah.
when growing up, my mom claimed to be allergic to cats. And then
Yep.
she finally let me have one, but it was a female because boy cats spray and it doesn't matter if you get them fixed. So for my whole life in my head, it was like, no, now we have 4 cats, but they're all female. Um, I've never had a boy cat except I was adopted by what is it? It's not Siamese. It's it's when they're blonde, but they're Siamese. I forget what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
He was blonde and blue-eyed, and
Oh, yeah.
he was gorgeous, but he showed up as a stray. And he was the sweetest cat in the world when it came to us and dogs. But he would charge at our glass window when
Oh, yeah.
another cat came to the window. And all 4 of mine were female, so you would think that he would be excited about that, but he was not nice. Well,
No.
I we have a cat cafe here, and I couldn't he was getting beat up because he was unfixed, and I doctored him I don't know how many times, but I at one point it looked like he had lost his eye, and in fact I have pictures where it looks like his
Oh,
eye's completely gone. And so I contacted the cat cafe slash cat rescue where we had adopted one of ours from, and they agreed to take him. The woman fell in love with him. We had named him Pig, but she ended up changing his name to Merlin because at the time when she got him from us, his eye was not there from the fight. And within a
wow.
week, the eye had showed back up. So apparently it had been
Wow.
knocked back up into his skull, but he was perfectly fine. So she named him Merlin because his eye magically appeared.
Well, that is it's exactly that. And so Deepak, so my and I think I might have told you Pasha Wrangler. So the two oldest are a mom and daughter duo. They were rescued from a building that was going to be demolished. So the firemen that went in for a safety check found her baby daddy, and 6 of their kittens, all Russian blue,
Oh,
sitting there in this
goodness.
building about to be imploded. And so the firemen rescued them, and then they went home with the fire chief, as the legend goes. And there was no room in the no-kill shelter, so he kept them in his kitchen until the no-kill shelter had time, or had space. And so I had been on the list waiting for a Russian blue because I am extremely allergic to all cats. But Russian blues have something in their saliva that doesn't create that allergy. The allergy to cats is in the saliva. So when they lick,
Yes.
there's
And
that.
most people don't realize that that's what it is. They
Right.
think they're allergic to cat fur, but it's not cat fur, it's their saliva.
Exactly, exactly. So I was on the list, so I get this call, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to take one of the kittens, you know." And they said, "Well, this one's taken, this one's taken, this one's taken. We have one, but she's kind of something's not right, you know." And she tried to escape and got her foot caught in the cage, so she's injured.
Oh,
Her mom won't let her out of her sight, and her mom is feral. And so I was like, okay, let me go and look at this situation. So I go and I try to touch the little kitten. Because she's a little special. She's a little special needs. And the mama looked at me like she was gonna freaking kill me. And I'm like, well, and they were like, if you'll take the mom and the baby, we'll work out a deal here. We're like, but you can get the mom for like 50% off, and good luck with her. Good luck. You know. So I took home this terrifying cat, and it would go up like a panther and just stare at us. And I tried to handle her baby very carefully. And then, within like 4 days, she took over our house, and she's been the absolute nanny to my children for the last 12 years. I mean, every single thing they need to do, she wakes them up, she watches them brush their teeth, their showers. Oh God, she has to watch their showers and get their backpacks, their breakfast, every single thing, watches them come home, do their homework. It is everything. So that big mama you see, yeah, that's her. And then Scoundrella is her baby, and she's very, very scared. She's, I think that maybe she had an amniotic sac on too long. Oh, something's not right. But she loves my husband and sleeps on his head at night. And so I've had that duo here for 12 years running my house. And then I thought they'd like a friend. So 3 years ago, there was this little kitten in the pet store. And it looked exactly like them. I thought it was a Russian blue, but I got this little thing home, and he is just batshit crazy, as you guys can all tell. My boo is crazy, and he's full of muscle. He's muscly. He's like a Rottweiler dog. He is muscle, and he, like you said, hitting the windows and stuff. He's done that. He's hit my bedpost so bad that's what started the one seizure he had, because he was chasing the other cat. And he is fixed, but he will mark. He will mark all over the house. So the only thing I've found that will get rid of that smell is from the Nature's Miracle. And I got a black flashlight, so I have to go around the house. And I mean, even though he's
I love
fixed,
Nature's
100%
Miracle.
fixed, it'll be all over. Oh, what would you do without it?
Oh
Is
my
it not the
gosh.
best
It
thing?
is the most amazing stuff. And the reason that I have it, I keep it in the house because all of my towels and blankets that I use for the rescues,
Yeah.
when they come into me, they're nasty, dirty, stinky, covered in Lord only knows what. And it's
Right.
the only thing that will get that smell off of them, off of the blankets and towels.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just, I might as well toss them in the garbage.
Same thing. I tried everything. I did everything. I mean, vinegar, everything. I was just doing
Bleach,
everything.
everything.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and
We
nothing
have
works other than
we have one feral. Well, they claim she was feral. The agency
Yeah.
we got her from, and the place where the cat cafe that took who became Merlin. It's called Mayport Feral Rescue, and basically their whole goal is TNR for the cat.
Yeah.
There's cats near the naval base here that are just overtaking the population. Well, when she came in, the one that we adopted, she was a 7.5-month-old kitten that was pregnant with kittens. So she
Oh.
was a baby having babies. And when we found out about her, my dad had just found a kitten under his building and brought it to us to nurse back to health, because its mom had disappeared. And sadly, it was too far gone. It had an umbilical hernia that maggots had gotten into. And we
Oh.
tried so hard to save her, but she was so tiny that it just wasn't possible. My youngest was devastated because this was going to be her kitten. And my aunt
Yeah.
contacted me and said, look, there is a kitten at Mayport Feral that they've had at the pet shop in a display, and she's doing horribly there. She's not happy there. She's pulling her fur out. I mean, it's bad. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. She's feral and she's already got issues. So we go and pick her up, and we have our youngest with us because it's going to be her cat. And this cat hates everybody except my child. I mean, she lives on my child's head.
Yep.
And
I believe it.
She's been the best cat ever, but not for me, not for my husband,
Right.
not for any of us.
Right. They choose their people.
Yes, they do.
And I mean, it's so true. And Deepak says that her boy is so extra clean and so polite, but we can't have any other animals because he uses his Jedi mind powers to get rid of them. He doesn't lay a toenail on them. It's fascinating. Exactly. It's like, and they, and he does that. And now a lot of people don't know, and this is what pisses me off, because people love to kill raccoons, and I love raccoons. And, we've talked about that before. Raccoons are from the cat family.
Cat family. Yes,
So
ma'am.
they will
sure
mark.
are.
Yep. So Boo will come and he'll mark the front door because they'll mark outside. So the possums mark our outside and it smells like cat piss. And then Boo will return fire. And so it's back and forth, and people want to kill the raccoons. And it's like, don't you realize that, they're all part of this economy? And
People
first,
don't
when I
realize
first
how much those
the
little creatures actually benefit. Like with Pete, possums have a horrible reputation. And I will be honest, for someone that has a horse farm, if they are not careful and they leave their feed exposed, where a possum can get into it, it can hurt horses if that food's been exposed to feces from a possum. So I understand them having an issue. However, possums eat snakes. They're immune to snake venom. They eat more ticks than people would ever begin to believe. So they're helping with the spread of tick-borne illnesses being stopped. And most people don't, they think, wait, a possum will, fight a snake. I'm like, yeah, Pete loves when a snake crosses his path.
And they eat them. They totally eat the snake, or
They,
do they
I assume
kill
they
them?
can. He only prefers the head and the brain. He'll just bite its head off and eat it, and then leave the rest like a present for me. I don't.
Well, and that's the thing with where so in Minnesota we had such late snow and everything. Our tick population is horrible. And my son was just out in the garden yesterday and came in, and he had 4 ticks on his body. He's already had Lyme once. Ticks are really bad here. We don't have dogs or anything, but we don't want the ticks to ever get to the cats or anything. And so that's the thing, is I don't see a lot of possums out here, and I don't see the raccoons because people hunt them, and they don't hunt
Yeah.
them for. I understand hunting when it is for the purpose of eating and using, but I don't like when people do the target thing. It really bothers me. And
If you're
so when I
gonna
first
hunt and use every part of the animal and eat, and I have no, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't get with me. They're like, wait, you're okay with hunting, you're okay with meat eating? I'm like, yeah, it's part of the circle of life. What I'm not okay
right,
with is targeting these animals when we're encroaching on their territory and
yes,
expecting them not to exist. And Deepak, I had no idea that possum pee stinks, because Pete is sort of box trained. He's water bowl trained. He will only use the bathroom in a huge water bowl. Oh, he's only ever done that. I never taught him
oh,
to do that. He taught himself to do that, and he does it inside and outside. He lives in his enclosure is huge, but he has a giant like horse water bowl that he climbs up in, and that's the only place he will use the bathroom.
oh, so because he doesn't want others to know he's there, then, right?
I think that's what it is. I've heard others tell me, because he's the first one that I've kept full time.
Okay,
And with babies are, you're having to stimulate them to go to the bathroom. It's not like something they normally do. By the time they're going to the bathroom on their own, it's ready. It's time for them to go, climb back up a tree and be a possum. But others that have had to keep possums in their care have told me the same thing, that they're so funny about cleanliness. You know how a cat is about, they groom themselves like a cat does. And they're like, oh,
yeah,
you can litter box train them. And I'm like, well, no wonder, because for the longest time, I'm like, this possum is nuts, because he just, he refuses to go to the bathroom unless there's a huge water bowl for him to get in.
yeah.
And when I learned that apparently that is a common thing for adult possums, even out in the wild, they use the bathroom in one specific place and will go back there to use it, but it's far, far away from where they predominantly stay, then it made sense, because I thought I was like, I had some possum that thought it was a human. I didn't know.
Well, I think they do. Like, I mean, like I really do. And the first when I came around to YouTube, literally like a year ago, and I was on my other channel, and I was on a creators thing, and she was talking about how she was shooting the raccoons, and she was getting ready to shoot the raccoons. There was a mama raccoon coming on her deck and everything, and I got pissed, and I started being like, no, you don't shoot raccoons. If we want to move and she always talked about her outside being so outdoorsy and right by the lake and right there and all that. Well, if you're going to move there, you need to respect that entire system, that if you take away one, something else goes, just like you're saying with the possum.
Exactly.
Then you're going to have the ticks, and you're going to have the snakes. You take away the raccoons, you're going to have so much more. And it bothered me so much that I couldn't stomach it. So I started speaking out, and I'm like, don't shoot raccoons. It's not even funny to talk about it, because then other people think that's what you do. And that's where one of the things that brought me to Michelle was
Oh,
that,
the armadillos.
yeah, I don't like that. And now
It's not
seeing
true
Tara,
either.
well, now Tara's life is endangered, because if that thing does not look like a pregnant armadillo raccoon, I don't know what's going to happen. So she wants to sit there and talk about, I love Michelle. Well, fine. She can come live with you. And then in the night, when she goes and gets her puke, you because you look like a pregnant armadillo and you get, I'm just saying the writing's on the wall. You want to sit there and scissor her and use her skin and co-sign everything she does and be so cute about it. And then look up in the camera, look down like you're a little girl and look up into the camera like you're so innocent. No one buys that shit. You're a freaking rodent, and here I am defending rodents and in all of that, but when I saw her face, I'm like, nope, that is the look of deception. I will love and sit with wild animals all day long. I will sit there and talk to them, but when I saw that Tara's face, I wanted to sit there and do what Boo Boo does on my screen. I want to slap the screen. I want to sit there and, just start that laptop and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And then she has the meth eyebrows. And I had the meth eyebrows too for a long time. Not that I've done meth, but when I was in, the height of the chronic pain, I was in the hospital all the time. And the meds out of the hospital were just very strong. So I think when I started plucking, I didn't feel the pain. So I went hog wild, and had that little band of brows because I could pluck better than I ever had. I mean, why have all these eyebrows? I mean, who needs them, right? And I look back at those pictures and I'm like, wow, I have the meth eyebrows, and you can really see meth eyebrows in people. It's a thing.
See,
and so when I
had
saw
never heard of meth eyebrows. That was a new one for me. I was like, what?
Now that you've seen it, now that I've said it, don't you see it?
Yes, I do. It's like I'm trying to think of who it reminds me of. It reminds me of like Betty Davis and Mommy Dearest.
Yes, it does.
That big giant, like really thin arch. I guess because I also have Brooke Shields eyebrows. I have never plucked mine. They don't grow together. They just, they're thicker, but they're just the way they are. So I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to eyebrows unless they really look like they're not real to me. And then I'm kind of like, why would you draw it on that way?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, some people look like they're actually getting a Sharpie and they're just doing it. They're like, this stays on better than any makeup. Why not you use a Sharpie? And they're like, holy shit, you look angry. and it's so funny. And I mean, some of these, these new makeup tutorials and stuff, I mean, they draw these eyebrows on that are like 8 inches long. I'm like, my entire face isn't even that big as your eyebrow is. It's just crazy. But, it's really good that you have the Brooke Shield natural eyebrows because the eyebrows really are a sign of youth. And like you say, you have the Brooke Shields eyebrows. Brooke Shields is that quintessential vision of youth. You think of youthful when you think of her, and on that island, and you think of that. So respect those eyebrows. Keep them.
I'm always scared to mess with them. Whenever I used to go to the nail salon, they'd be like, would you like your eyebrows waxed? I'm like, no, don't touch my eyebrows, please and thank you. I like them just fine, just the way they are. I was always scared because I'd seen people overpluck, and I know that sometimes they don't grow back. Sometimes you pluck them enough that they don't grow back, and that always scared the living daylights out of me. So I was like, no. Yes, Angry Birds eyebrows. Exactly.
And that's kind of what happened to me. And now I'll be back as I've been to Melbourne. I've been to Melbourne, Australia.
Y'all are brave.
I was following my sailor. I was following my sailor around because I didn't trust him in those ports by himself. So I just hop on a plane and he was supposed to be in Melbourne and then Perth for so 2 weeks in one and 2 weeks in the other. So I was like, why don't I spend a month in Australia? Because I was, I'd had my nervous breakdown not too long before that. So I'd spent 3 months inpatient, trying to, be a nice person to others and whatnot. And it worked. It took a long time, but it took. And so then I traveled as much as I possibly could. And the week before I left Thailand with him, that was the week before 9/11. So my plans of Perth in Australia that were perfectly laid out, and those tickets I bought that I put non-refundable because he's in the Navy, they're not going to change their thing. Oh yeah, they did. So I fly down to freaking Australia, and I was going to be down there for a month. So imagine all the things that, a 28, 29-year-old woman packs to be down there for a month. Well, because it was right after 9/11, they were very suspicious of me and all my travel. So they took me in this little room, and one by one, they unpacked every single thing that I had for a month. And it was embarrassing AF. And I'm just looking at them like, well, what do you expect? it's going to be a long time. I'm going to be alone. You know what I mean? So it was so embarrassing, but I don't know if they were impressed or frightened or what. But, and so I go down there and it was, December, and I did not know about wildfires or anything like that. And I get down there and they really lectured me before I left LAX. They said, look, we don't know what all Al Qaeda is planning, but they have made very specific threats against Americans, especially American women in foreign countries. If you do this and you go down there and you are taken, you will not be rescued. You will be beheaded. Do not expect us to come and save you. And I'm like, well, that's just fine. Okay, can I go now? And then I get on the flight and I'm thinking all about this, and I'm like, well, beheaded, I don't know. I want to be here. And I get down there and his ship would not let him port. It was too big of a danger. So he's out there in the middle of the ocean. I'm here in Melbourne, and Melbourne is really like, it's very barren. It looks like our American Dakotas, very much like, and the wildfires were there and everything, and it wasn't great. I couldn't understand anything. They don't respect pedestrians. Like, here in America, we stop for pedestrians. They aimed at me, and then they thought I was a hooker. So every time I'd be running across the road, they'd be like, "How much, bitch? How much? How much?" And I'm like, how much? What? Do you think I'm a hooker? Like, don't answer. And they're like, "How much, bitch? How much, bitch?" And I'm like, what? So I mean, I
Wow.
10 days of it, and I went home.
Wow.
So
See,
like,
I won't
just like,
fly. So I have to live vicariously through everybody else. I flew the last time when I was, I don't know, 12 years old. My brother is frequently over there, but he runs a cybersecurity company, and he works
oh,
for
okay.
the Australian Postal Service, I think, is one of his clients. I think it's I don't know exactly what it's called, but he goes over there and works there, does work for them there, and then works at the military's NOC Network Operating Center that is in Australia.
Okay.
And so he's brought back like souvenirs and stuff that make me wish that I could go, and done things that make me wish that I could go, but I won't get on an airplane. He jumped off the world's tallest building, I think there. I mean, he didn't jump. He was attached to a bungee
Right.
type thing, but it was apparently the world's tallest building. It was a glass building, and he sent this video to my mom to flip her out. But
Deepak, what is
my
that
own
building
husband,
called that people jump off in the land down under? What is that building called?
I don't know, but it's beautiful. It's an all glass building, and he had to wear a blue suit
Deepak,
on
I
the
think
whole.
I've seen it. Is it the one that has the decks out to it? Does it
I would
have
assume
the
so,
deck?
because he has to go. He had to
Yeah.
go out on a deck and go
Yes.
off.
Yes, I've seen that. I mean, I was going to get my diving certificate and everything. Everything was so beautifully planned out. And then I was like, nope, nope, nope. And it's like, it's just, isn't that like, okay. So Deepak says Melbourne isn't like that now. I'm pretty sure it's not. Yeah. So I was there, in 2001 so just right there in 2001. And it was, and I went down and, the other thing is that my dumbass thought that a hostel was like just like a inexpensive way to be in a hotel, and it said that so there's 6 rooms to 1 bathroom, and I'm like, it's okay, I'll wear my Tevas in the shower, nothing will happen. Well, nobody informed me that all of the backpackers that have never bathed before, they can jam in it however many they want per room. So I mean, there was at least 24 to 32 going to that bathroom, and my IBS is not friends with anybody. And it was before I fully developed and was diagnosed as Crohn's, and I needed that freaking bathroom and everything else. And I've got all of this out there, and oh my God, I'm telling you. And so I went down, I just like walked around by myself, and the guy at the internet cafe, he was like, I'm really concerned because you're a tourist and you don't seem like you're having fun. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do, and I can't bathe. I can't get in the bathroom. I don't know anybody, and I was supposed to be just having a big fuck fest with my sailor.
Oh my goodness. See, my husband was stationed in Hawaii, and I stayed back because, again, I won't fly. And
Really?
people are like, are you nuts? You could have been in Hawaii. I was like, yeah, I could have, but I wasn't getting on no airplane. Thanks, but no thanks.
Do you have a premonition that something's going to happen?
No, I flew prior to the age of 12 with no problems. When I
Right.
was 12, my mom decided to let me go and stay with a friend of hers in Virginia for 3 weeks in the summer. And I flew up by myself, and said friend and her child were not very pleasant. I missed my parents. I had had a
Yeah.
horrible flight on the way up. I begged my parents to please come pick me up. And then they just couldn't. And I flew back home, and I was sitting between this older couple. And I feel, even to this day, all these years later, I feel bad because we were again in horrible turbulence. And I had a Coke in my hand because the older woman handed me a Coke. She's like, "Oh, honey, it'll be okay. We'll be fine." First turbulence we hit, the Coke goes flying all over her. And I'm hysterically bawling. I'm promising God everything if he gets me off this plane. Number one being I would never get back on another plane. And I have held true to that to this day.
I'm trying to compromise with God and be like, okay, so I said it and I was young and I didn't quite mean it. Can I do this and that and still be good or no?
My brother tried to convince me to do that because his 21st birthday was in Las Vegas and I couldn't go because I wouldn't fly. And he's like, "Come on, Sarah, God will understand. Just offer him something else." And I'm like, "No, I'm not offering him anything else. Plus, if all y'all die on this plane, then I'll have everybody's stuff. So I'll just stay right here."
You're like, no, I'm serious about my deals to God, okay?
Exactly. I was not breaking even my husband's like, "Babe, come on. Just one plane. It's a whole lot quicker to take a plane than it is to take a car." I said, "Yeah, but the car has 4 wheels on the ground. Thank you very much."
So how long was he stationed in Hawaii?
He was there. Well, he was deployed one of the years, but he was stationed there 2 years.
In 2 years and you did not go?
No, not at all. He came home. In fact, I went through a whole pregnancy with him still stationed there.
Woman, you cannot go on like this. Well, I mean, you have, and you've done it, but oh my. I went to Hawaii, I think I've been to Hawaii 9 times, and then we were considering going there as, getting stationed there. But as the 3 were so little, their medical is not great. And with all of the interventional services that we knew that the kids needed because they're preemie, and with my one with cerebral palsy, it just was not a good fit, but we considered it.
Yeah, the medical was one thing, but even to visit for me, it just wasn't, as much as I wanted to, I just couldn't. Even when he came home from deployment, I felt horrible because he was deployed from Hawaii and I was going to go. I had talked to the doctor. They were going to give me meds to get on the plane. And he's like, no, babe. It was our first deployment. And I wasn't really thinking. I shouldn't have listened to him. I should have gone anyway because he had a rough time when he got home and nobody was there. But even that, he knew how strong my fear was. So at that point we had 2 already and I would be leaving them behind. So it was like, not only was it my own fear, it's not my own fear of what's going to happen to me. It's about the people that depend on me to care for them. And so, or that's what it's become. So now I just can't. And anytime any of my family flies, it makes me, I'm like counting the days till they come home. I'm a ninny when it comes to that. I wish there were a way to get over it.
Yeah. Wow. Because even if you took Ativan or something, you don't think it would help?
I don't believe so. I really don't. I think that I used to say that if somebody could knock me out like they did with Mr. T from the A-Team and put me on the plane, then I would be okay.
Then you'd be just fine.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I traveled as much as I possibly could when I did. And I'm really glad because of the way that my life turned out and how I ended up getting so much more sick with my Crohn's and kidney issues and everything. So I'm glad that I traveled when I did. And I really, just encourage that in the younger people too. I'm just like, You
Exactly.
know what? When you're young, travel as much as you can. Wait to have kids. Live your life a little,
That's
you
one thing
know?
that I never wanted to hand off to my children either, and why I'm grateful that my husband doesn't mind flying,
Yeah.
because I didn't want them to carry my fear. I knew how much of a burden that fear, even though um it was only affected me. It
Yeah.
also, how I felt was that it only affected me. It affected me going to events that were far, like in Las Vegas. I couldn't
Yeah.
drive there by the time they would get there. If I drove there, they'd be coming home. So there were events that I did miss, and I don't want my kids to carry that fear with them, because it's not a fun. No fear is fun to carry around, but
Right.
that is something that was really life altering for me. And I have kids that want to travel the world, and I want them to be able to do that. And I'm grateful that
Yeah.
my husband will fly, so if they want a parent to go with them, then there is one that will get on a plane. Will I worry the whole time? Yes. But would I ever let them know that until they got back? No. Because I don't want them to have my fears at all.
Well, I mean, and there's something to be said for it too. I mean, there's a lot of people who have premonitions, and they're and then they try to get over it, and then the worst thing happens. So
Exactly. So I feel like that's part of it. um and I think because I like what my brother was the traveler at 15. He flew to Japan to visit a girlfriend for almost a month. um
at 15.
at 15, my parent it was his Christmas gift from my parents, and his girlfriend's dad was in the Navy and stationed there, and he had an
Oh, okay.
amazing time. But I cried the entire time he was gone, because and he knew. Here's the funny part, though. He knew how much I feared that stuff. So while he was waiting to get on the plane, he's like, Sarah, see that woman over there with the nice thick booty? Yep. When the plane goes down, she's dinner. And I'm like, stop. Because the movie
Have
about
a
the
rump roast.
soccer players that had crashed in the Andes Mountains had just come out.
I love that. Yellow Jackets.
um the no the one, it was a true story about the soccer players that crashed in the Andes Mountains, and they ended up being rescued, but many of them survived eating other ones. And I forget the
Okay, so then, well, have you seen Yellow
no, I
Jackets?
haven't seen Yellow Jackets.
Okay, then this must be based on that. I didn't realize that there was actually a historical thing, because this Yellow Jackets is new, and it's got a lot of Juliette Lewis and stuff like that in it. And it was it's a teenage girl soccer team that crashed in this abandoned mountains, and they're resorting to cannibalism.
Oh yeah, it must be based on that, because this was, I mean, gosh, this was in the 90s, I guess. Early 90s is when he went.
Okay.
So God, what was the name of that movie? I forget the name of the dang movie. But they crashed in, I mean, I remember it actually happening in real life too, but then you see the movie and you see them like picking out which person they're gonna carve off of, and I just no. And so my brother knew how much it affected me, and he's like, yep, that one's dinner, Sarah. And I'm like, stop, you're not gonna crash. I was such an
Well,
emotional
that's
baby.
hilarious, because I did not know. I mean, and it makes sense, because okay, so this you have to now you're gonna have to watch Yellow Jackets. And what is that girl's name? Okay, have you watched the movie or the new TV show called Wednesday, which is it's like the girl on Adam's Family?
Yes, we've watched Wednesday. Yes.
Okay, so Christina Ricci, that's who it is. Christina Ricci is in Yellow Jackets.
Oh, I will have to look into that, because
Yo,
it
she's
sounds like
hilarious.
it.
Yes, you're
Sounds
gonna
like it
have
must have
to.
had some basis in that.
Yes, because I see, and that's funny, because I wouldn't have known that it's based in that. And Deepak, thank you for listening. And no problem that you have to step away. Okay. So see, Richie Valens had premonitions through dreams of plane crashes, and he was terrified to fly, but he did it, and it was a tragic outcome. And Patsy Cline, Buddy Holly, exactly. There are so many that had that premonition, and they were like, no, and people were like, oh no, it's fine. It's just going to be a little short trip.
Yeah. See?
and they knew. Helping your
It's
fear here, but I truly believe in those of us who are grounded inward, and you seem to be very spiritually in tune, because of how you can really respond to the empathy of the animals and what they need, and you may be into, or maybe if we go into past lives, maybe you were in a plane crash in a past life, who knows? But
That's
there's
very
something there.
possible.
There's something, you know,
Yeah, there
something just
definitely is
there.
something there. And I just at this point, I'm almost 50. I don't see any reason for me. And that's the other thing is although my fear does extend to my loved ones, it's not it's more so, I know that things happen and I just pray for their safe travels. But with me, just the thought of even getting on an airplane, no. I just no, 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 and no.
And that's the thing. I mean, like Deepak says, it is those things you just don't know. So now, was your husband in the Navy too? Is that what? Or I
Marine
think it was
Corps.
Marine. Okay, so they get stationed
Yes.
kind of like Navy does.
Yes, ma'am.
I
He
didn't
was
know that.
his unit actually was going to be transferred, sort of transferred to be stationed in Japan, but at the time spouses weren't allowed to come. That was the other reason that I stayed behind because it was supposed to be a 4-year split station. So he would be in Hawaii for 2 years and then the Japan base for 2 years. And so why would I
Okay,
go to Hawaii if for one of the 2 years he was stationed there, he was going to be deployed and the other 2 he was going to be in Japan and I couldn't go. They said that it was at the time it was too hostile for families
oh
families and children to go with.
yeah,
So
and when
I
you've got
was
the kids to think of, and
yes. Yep.
it's yeah, and that was what after my three oldest, but my ex-husband was well, he's an amazing father. That's the best thing I've done for my children is choose amazing fathers. Um, I have 6 kids, so probably at least 8 to 10 dads in there. I don't know. 8 to 10, maybe 12. Twins is still up in there. I don't know. But so I have 6 kids. I have 2 baby daddies. So I was with my first husband for 13 years, and then I've been with my second husband for 22 years and counting. And so I had that time in between, and they'd go to their grandparents for the summers and stuff like that. My 3 oldest, so they had really really good strong family connections where they could go and I could travel, and not worry about taking them or anything like that. They were happy where they were on their little vacations and stuff. So it was a good time for me to do it because I was pregnant all through my junior year. And so graduated with a 1-year-old on my hip, my graduation gown. And
Oh
in
wow.
1990, well, and I graduated in 1990, that was not popular. That was not a thing. I was one of the first in my hometown to be pregnant and stay in high school. Um, and that was a big thing because, you'd go to the alternative, and I went, like I was supposed to go to the alternative, and I was very undernourished. I was 4'11", and I went to the tour of the alternative, and I was so scared. They looked like they were going to eat me alive. So I went back to my assistant principal and I was like, "Can I please stay in the regular high school? Please, please, please." They looked like they were going to eat me, and I been beaten up just so many times. I don't want to get beaten up while I'm pregnant. I can't fight right. And so, he was like, "Yes, we'll support you. We'll support you. It's okay." But I mean, back then it was like, okay, we have to make the decision because if I was pregnant in front of others, and,
Yep.
and I was shunned and harassed, and they would come and get me, straight from my boyfriend's car and walk me in and stuff, and people still threw things and stuff, but now it's not even a big thing. But for me to be a pregnant junior through my whole junior year, it was a thing, and having to take my kid to daycare before my senior year. So I never had those moments to myself, and I was just a really good and diligent mom and worked hard, and my ex worked hard, and we never saw each other, didn't have much of a marriage in that, right? And then 13 years we're like brother and sister, and and then I went and had my nervous breakdown and we divorced. But I was able to travel, and like I say, I you can't, although my adventures weren't as great as I'd planned, they were still adventures, and I like knowing about the world. It gives me that base, and but you have to honor your fears. I have fears about other things. I am really, really afraid to go into movie theaters. It is my biggest fear. My husband tried 20, 20, almost 21 years ago, and I got vertigo and started throwing up right away. I couldn't do it. I was a little bit pregnant. Well, I guess you can't be a little bit. So, I blamed it on that, but he could not get me back in a movie theater. I feel, because my PTSD and stuff, and I can't see where people are, and if people are behind me, and then these movie theaters shooting started, and I told my husband, I was like, "Look, I'm not freaking crazy." And so he finally was able to pull me into one 2 weeks ago. We compromised. I'd been doing some things that he liked. He'd been doing some things that I liked on date nights, and he was like, "I'd really like to get you back into a movie theater." So we really had to talk about it. My kids had to go scope it out and figure out the safest seat for me, because you can pick your seat now and everything.
Yeah.
And I had to go and study the exits and just be ready. And I had to, get the one where I could walk around if I and not bother anybody if I started to freak out and needed to go out and de-stim. You know, it's like I'm so my PTSD. But I finally did it. But there's a great fear. Maybe I was Abraham Lincoln in a past life. I don't know. But the movie theater, the whole thing, it just is really difficult for my PTSD.
It would make sense with our age and the timing, because it was just in our generation that those types of incidents started happening in movie theaters. Those like mass incidents with pew pews.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, so I could see where someone would have a fear related to that. I know my own husband gets very like he won't sit where he can't have his back to everybody coming towards him. If
right.
his back isn't against the wall where he can see anybody coming in a door or coming up or whatever, he gets really, really funny. And it's
Yep,
his PTSD for sure. And so
yep.
we don't, like, if we go to the movies, we sit at the very top row so nobody can come in behind us. And he's got an exit plan. He knows how we're getting out of there. Um, and I'm not going to push that, because I know what he experienced and why he is the
Right.
way he is. Um, like I told you, I have my own PTSD surrounding a shooting, but mine was, it's the reason that I am, I guess, I don't even know what the word is. I don't want to say antisocial, but I'm a homebody. I
Right.
prefer, I can go to a movie or go to whatever, but as far as like parties and stuff go, it's very rare to get me to go to an event. It has to be like my nephew's birthday or my parents' 50th anniversary is coming up, and their party is this weekend, and I'm not looking forward to it. Am I going to go? Yes. But
Right.
I'm really, really not looking forward to it. And it's not because I don't love them, but it's because of that type of event where you don't know who's coming in the door, when, how, why. And it still freaks me out, even though it's people that I've known my whole life. You just don't know sometimes. It's a public
Well,
place,
exactly.
so you know.
Exactly. And Deepak says here, that she hates going to movie theaters too, and the CPTSD is what you explained you have as well to me, and and thank you so much, Deepak. Um, I, I think that there are reasons why we come together in this conversation, and the conversations that we have had previously, and the ones we're going to continue, really speak to how there are more of us that think that way. But when we're in that situation and we feel that we're that skittish one looking at the doors and stuff, there are more of us than we know, and these conversations prove it. Now, am I
Yes.
trying to work through it? Absolutely. But as I explained in my Mexican standoff video about Michelle, I was nearly shot by gang warfare going to an Amy Grant concert in Minnesota.
Oh
You know,
wow.
where and that's because the gang members get these guns that somebody will give them, and how she was talking about she's mamacita and stuff, and so they get these guns. These guns aren't registered. That's the problem.
It's a huge
guns are
problem.
not. Yeah, and so they didn't care. There were cops right out there. There were 2 cops parked outside, just because of the way that they patrol that area. And so now what they have to do for concerts here in Minnesota, down in St. Paul and Minneapolis, they have to close down the blocks. They have to close down streets so that we don't get shot at by gangs going to
Wow.
concerts now.
See, I
That's the
thought it was getting
Midwest.
bad in our area, which it is. It's much different. I've lived here my entire life. My mom moved here, I think, when she was 7. My grandfather was in the Navy, and this was his last stop. And then my dad was born and raised here. So I remember a time when people didn't lock their front doors. My grandparents didn't lock their front door I mean, probably until I was close to 13 years old.
Oh yeah, I remember those days. Yeah.
And it's not like that anymore, and it makes me sad, but at the same time I see how it is other places, and I know how lucky we are, even though I hear people in the area constantly complaining about how awful it is, and it's not good, but it
Mm-hmm.
compared to what others are dealing with right now, yes, our city has changed, but nothing like other people are dealing with, and it would make me sad if it was that way, because it's bad enough as it is. Like I don't think that I don't think I planned to have to carry a personal weapon with me everywhere I went when I was growing up.
Right.
You know, I knew how to use one. I had a dad that was a police officer, and from the time I was little, I was taught gun safety, when you're allowed to touch it, when you're not allowed to touch it. You know, my kids have grown up. We have a 4-H program at our shooting range here, but it was always for sport or, you know, to learn gun safety. It's never been until recently, within the past 10 years, that I didn't feel safe going out without one on me. And it's not just for me, it's for anybody that I'm around, because it can happen anywhere and you just don't know. You know, you
Well, and
just
that's the
don't know
thing is,
when somebody's going to snap.
well, and that's the thing, Deepak, exactly. That's why I even laugh at the fact, Amy Grant concert. I mean, what the heck?
I was going to say an
And,
Amy Grant concert. Wow, that's a little,
well, and that's the thing, and it was really sad
it
because,
is.
there was, let's just say it, here we all that are this older white cohort of artsy fartsy people in the downtown area. And, that it's a culture, it's a, the where they have the theaters is still where they were built, at the turn of the century, and they're very beautiful, and they want you to come down and still support that beautiful thing in the arts. But the reality is it's inner city, and you're going where the gangs are, and the gangs patrol each side of that street. And if they see somebody that's walking by that's marked, that's green lighted, they don't care who they hit when they're trying to get it. And I had just walked in, my husband and I came in, and I had to pee, and that's probably the only reason I busted through so fast. I had to pee, and then he went to the merch, so he stayed upstairs while I went downstairs, because it's this 1892 building, and you have to go down these creaky ass stairs to get down there to the toilets, and so I was downstairs, and all of a sudden I heard like a bunch of running and stuff, and people screaming and crying, and I'm like going, what is going on? And I come up and I'm like, what the hell are people fighting in line about, trying to push through to get into Amy Grant? What is going on? I come up, and it was that weird eerie silence, like something had happened and I didn't know what. And so the one woman was on the side and she was crying, and I always keep these little pads, I get them at the military thing. There are these hot and cold wipes. I don't know if you've seen them or not, but
Yes, ma'am, I sure have. Know
you,
exactly what you're talking about.
I love those for my PTSD attacks, and I keep them in my thing, because then I can just sniff that, that pepperminty kind of oil, and it gives me that cooling.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked up to her, and I was like, here, honey, this is what I do when I have a panic attack. Are you okay? Is it just the crowd? And she was like, and I'm like, what? And I'm not getting it, and she couldn't talk. She was scared to death. And then there was another lady who was about 80, and she was doing the same thing. And I lock eyes with my husband. I'm like, what the fuck? And he came over, and he's like, yeah, we're all shoved in here, and the curtains are all pulled and everything, because right now the gangs just came by and shot at everybody. And hi, Past, welcome to the conversation. The gang members locked eyes with this 80-year-old woman and had the gun aimed at her and the other woman who was there with her child and husband.
Oh,
And multiple shots went out. Nobody was injured or killed, thank God. But as we walked in, we walked by police officers. There's one posted right there. So they have their plan. And when the gangs start shooting, because it's a when now, they just grab you as a crowd and throw you in and then lock the doors.
right.
And that's what had happened. But I'm like, you're a sitting duck now because of these guns that are everywhere. And the whole game. Oh, I can't walk on this side of the sidewalk because it's your turn. Are you maintaining this? Are you cleaning this? Do you pay taxes on this? How do you own this side of the freaking sidewalk? I don't get me started, but it's the freaking guns. And then the lack of respect for them. Those are deadly weapons. And
Exactly.
I took a citizens. Have you ever heard of a citizens academy? A
Yes,
citizens.
ma'am. I sure have.
Okay, so I did that when I moved here because I was trying to understand how the sheriffs had jurisdiction. They had a different jurisdictional thing than what I'm accustomed to on the West Coast. And where I live in Wright County, it's this huge county, and it's mandated by this one sheriff's department, and the inner city has another. But so we don't have police departments in many cities over. So when there's a crisis and people don't know and they try to find the police department for their city, there is no police. We don't have police in a city burgeoning at 25,000, bordered by another city of 20,000, bordered by another one of 17,000. We don't have police. We literally do not have police. So our USDOJ things are skewed. It looks like we have no crime because we don't have that community policing. So we don't have all of that. So it's a little misleading, and people come here to Minnesota and they're going, what the, because they don't see it. We don't have the resources for it. But in that citizens sheriff academy thing I went through, and at the end they do teach us to shoot, and they take us down to their range where they shoot. And and we were all talked about the respect for the weapons and the stance and how you have to ground yourself and everything. And so I listened carefully. I did everything right. And then the stimulus thing, with the rubber bullets, I shot right, and I shot first because I saw their actor pull, for something from their hoodie. They started to go, and it was this was the stimulated thing. So I dropped the person, with a rubber bullet before the people behind me. They're like, oh my God, did you not understand what you're doing with the trigger? And, the sergeant comes out and he's like, no, if I had her as my backup, my wife would sleep at night. She did what we are supposed to do. You have somebody with their hands in the hoodie. They have a knife. This is what she was supposed to do. She did it. You didn't even notice. And this is why bystander testimony is not accurate. They don't see the whole thing. This is what cops deal with. They talk about, how fast you can come on with a knife and all of that stuff. And,
Yep.
and it was just so, so eye opening. But the way that, I was good with the guns because I listened and I honored the way that they taught me. So, I know how to shoot a shotgun. I know how to shoot a 9mm, blah, blah. And so when I saw that Michelle has these pew-pews and she was stupid enough to cut her own hand, makes me know she has no respect for those pew-pews and no ability to use them. So what's she even doing shooting pregnant armadillos? I had that problem, as I told you, that and that's where I spoke more strongly in my thing last week, because I wanted to start a fire under somebody's ass to make sure that those pew-pews were gone. Because if she can't have them, and she doesn't know how to use them, and she's trying to lure people out to these YouTube events, getting those keyboard warriors, she wants desperately to have that confrontation. She gets that confrontation, she can prove that she's being targeted and harassed, and she can get that lawsuit she wants so bad for all of these things can happen. That's why the guns have to go. Do we have any updates on how court went today?
Yes, we do.
Oh, breaking news. Bombshell tonight, folks. Bombshell tonight.
Well, first of all, the people got the link to be able to listen to the hearing.
They did get it. Ooh.
So the Zoom hearing. However, Etienne was afraid that she had somebody in there recording it to make content out of it. So in the beginning, you could see her and you could see him. They both appeared by Zoom. And if you remember, she claimed there was going to be no Zoom, blah, 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 blah. They were both there by Zoom.
Really?
Yes.
You
His
can never
attorney.
believe anything she says. Big surprise.
Exactly. But the attorney for Etienne was addressing the judge, and Michelle starts hollering about Lisa's in the watch room. Bot is in the watch room. And the judge had to tell her to shut up like 4 times.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, he's like, we're not talking about this. We're not, we're not discussing this. And she kept on going. She obviously has no respect for any judge either, any more than she has for anybody else, which is kind of sad. But so he ended up booting everybody from the hearing. And it wasn't just people there for her hearing. She was acting like today's hearing was the only thing on the calendar. Everybody that was
it's her. She's the priority. She rules the world, don't you know?
Exactly. And that's exactly how she was acting. And the judge was not falling for it. So just in the brief amount of time that we got to witness, she was chastised several times. And then the judge finally booted everybody. But it wasn't just people listening for her case. It was people there for other cases as well. So the whole link, everybody got booted and the link got nixed. So I guess that the people that were there for other hearings had to get a new link. However,
are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding.
How many people are inconvenienced by this butthole?
Exactly. Well, then after the hearing, an update popped up on the clerk's website, and it said NISI hearing for July 12th. Well, the NISI hearing, and people I think were really confused by that. All a NISI hearing is basically announcing that there's going to be a case brought against a certain person, right? So when it first showed up.
So what is that? Okay, so it's a NISI, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and for as the replay crew is awesome in my channel, they know me, that they know not to watch graphics and stuff. They know they can listen.
Right.
Can you just do a really thorough explanation here for me and for the replay crew on what a NISI hearing is?
Basically, what NISI is announcing that you're going to be pursuing legal action against someone. So when a NISI hearing happens, you're acknowledging to the court that you're going to bring legal action against this person. So when her court case first showed up, when she filed this mess that she filed, the hearing today was scheduled as a NISI hearing, an NISI hearing.
Okay.
Now, after their court hearing today, another NISI hearing appeared for 7/12. And it was there for about 2 hours before it changed to a contempt hearing for July 12th, which tells me that the judge dismissed her claim for contempt and is proceeding forward with Etienne's counterclaim. And instead of having to have a NISI hearing, they're going for the regular contempt hearing on July 12th.
Is that his contempt?
Yes,
is that his filing of her contempt?
It's his.
So where she went through and crossed off everything because she said that the court staff told her to, that is not correct.
No, that's not correct.
She has everybody just listening to her shit, and I've never seen anything. So, I mean, she disrespects the court, but she treats it, like we know the addicts and those kind of people do, the Michelles, they treat that like their playground.
She treats it like her personal courthouse, like that's her personal judge. She was yammering on. She did a live stream that got cut off in the middle of it. And before I came on here, she had started another one. She already had one live stream shut down today.
Okay, so did Tara Ratface create these channels for her, and then she was able to just log into them and do live streams?
Somebody created them for her, because the first one that she got booted off of, I was in that one, and I made a comment because she was lying, saying that this particular court case was going to be, it was put off because the judge wanted Etienne to be in his presence, blah, 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 blah. which is bullcrap. A judge isn't going to put off a hearing just because the man has his judge present, his lawyer present, and he's on Zoom. He is present as far as the courts are concerned.
She wants him there in person because I'm telling
She
you
does.
why.
She wants to. I'm scared personally that what she wants to do is hurt him.
That's my thought. That's why I spoke more strongly, because I'm like, okay, what does she need to say other than, now, did you see, okay, so the Mexican standoff thing, and I'm not being racist, I'm citing what she's written on the back of her YouTube, is when
Right.
she would say about her channel, she would say this is a Mexican standoff, or this is for the Mexican standoff. When I started noticing it, it was the catalyst and many things she was writing. So that's where I was like, what is this? And I was just thinking, your typical, thinking of the old shootout. But then when I was talking about it and I looked it up and I defined it, I was like, holy shit, she tells on herself every single time. So I did that content. And then when you and I were emailing back and forth, you mentioned the Mexican standoff in definition. Had you not heard that I had done that yet to that point?
No, I hadn't heard that.
Are you kidding me? So we were on the same wavelength. We both looked at that. We both saw that on our own and looked it up.
Yes.
That is crazy. That is crazy that we noticed that, because nobody else did. They're like, okay, racist or whatever. And then I got called a racist because of me posting yogurt bowls. So now I look like a. They're like, how very white of you. How very white of you. They're like, oh yeah, desperate divorced mom. I'm like, okay, bitches. I was divorced 22 years ago. I've been remarried for 22, almost 23 years. I didn't know that I was divorced. I didn't know I was desperate, and I didn't know that posting yogurt bowls makes me a racist. But because they saw Mexican standoff, and now I'm being called a racist. And it's like, no, I'm not the asshole here. It's what she keeps putting, and I think that the definition of it, well, she is ridiculous and says ridiculous things. It's a veiled threat. She's saying what she wants to do.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's scary
His price
to me.
for leaving her is death. If she could kill his dog, come on. She'd kill him without thinking twice. What does she have to lose?
Where I have been, I know people are now catching up, but for a while, I have been saying, look, y'all might think that this is funny and whatever. This is a dangerous situation. We are dealing with someone that she has nothing to lose to begin with.
Exactly.
Nothing. She has nothing to lose, and she is being called out for every single thing she has done. And I truly don't believe she's ever been called out before. I hate to say this because I normally wouldn't question it, but I don't believe anything happened to her as a child, except for that she was a spoiled brat and got her way.
Me too. And I can say that as a victim, as I've confided in you, and my channel listeners know, because I'm open about it, because I believe that me being candid shows that I am not coming from a point of judgment. I am coming from a point of saying, if you had those things done to you, you do not speak like this. And they're like, well, I know somebody who did. Well, you know what? Bring that person's ass over to me and let's do it. And let's talk to them. And then they never can. They don't know what that person really did. But I can tell you, the way that she acts and the way that she is and the way that she's trying to make that, once again, weaponize it, is not the way that a true person who's been victimized in that manner would ever talk about. Yeah. And she's disgusting. And hi, happy hooker, because my friend I knit because that murder is frowned upon. She's a hooker. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
She's a hooker. She straight up is. She crochets and knits with a hook, so she's a hooker.
I'm gonna start calling my mom a hooker.
Absolutely,
like,
do it.
Guess what? You're a hooker.
Call them for what they are. You know how I feel about that. Things have to be very, very black and white with me.
Yes, and I completely understand that, because that's the other thing is, I guess with the whole assault thing that she has claimed, it reminded me of the Katie Joy situation, which I don't know if you were aware of, where she made these claims about how an officer mishandled her investigation. And
I would love to hear that. I'm going to her status hearing tomorrow. It's at 3:20.
Me too.
Are you going to be on there on Zoom?
Obviously. Oh yeah.
Did they do a Zoom link?
Yes, ma'am. They sure did. Would you like it? I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please send it to me. Since my transmission blew up in my vehicle, we're to one vehicle. So provided that nobody else needs the vehicle tomorrow, I'm planning on going. Because I want to see, who's going to show up. I think that the status hearing alone is going to scare her into not wanting it, because she's going to see that there's a lot of people who are watching. But then the courthouse is beautiful. It's brand spanking new. You're going to see it. You're going to. Well, I did the one little short where I showed that, it's all farmland around it. And then you've
I
got this
did see that.
beautiful
I
thing.
did see that. I was like, oh, so this is where they're going to be going in. It looks.
Yes. Can you imagine the 7M like limousines coming into this? They're going to be like, what in the
Where
shit?
are we?
In the shit? And we have really, really odd things about our restraining orders and no contact orders here in the state of Minnesota. And I believe that that is why she's been able to get away with what she has. In other states, you can pretty easily go to the courtroom, slap down no, what do you call it? I mean, there's different terms for it and everything. But
It's
if
a
you want to have
restraining order, an order of restraint.
well, they also call it no contact. But if you want one of those, like in other states, you can put that against anybody. They go to court 10 days later if it's not valid, blah, blah, blah. Here in Minnesota, if you are not a victim of domestic violence proven by the police report that backs up your injuries, and you are not a victim of a crime where the judge, at the time that the judge even gets it, can put a restraining order on for the victim's protection, you have to file a $900 filing fee per person named. So that's why the other people who tried to come for her cannot do it unless they're these LA types. And even then, they've had to get their high priced lawyers into this, because you have to invest to be able to say shut up to somebody in Minnesota. It's really complicated. And I've had to work with it, since my son was robbed when he was coming home fishing one day by 3 gang members that, my son was cerebral palsy. So it's a big wound that we're still healing from years later. And I had to work and work and work to keep him safe, but we couldn't even file restraining orders against the 3 gang members that had done that, because it went back and forth, got dropped, blah, 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 unless and until it finally got to the damn judge about 4 months later, and she was able to authorize that restraining order. But we could not get one before unless we paid the $900. And then it has to be like, so then if you have anybody else in the family or anybody else that you want named, it's $900 per person.
See, that's crazy to me. That means that she paid $1,800 to file a restraining order against another creator who she said was harassing her. But it was all over the internet. So there was never anything in person. And she said she was a victim of assault, but I guess assault via words. And until it went to court, that restraining order, they a temporary restraining order, a TRO, until it went to court and that creator was able to fight it and have it dropped. So that's crazy to me that she would do that.
These are things, like I say, I lived in Washington State, California, Las Vegas. I'm familiar with, basic law there, blah, blah, blah. And from my degree in criminal justice and whatnot, I was pretty well versed. And then when I came here, I'm going, are you actually fucking kidding me?
That would make me nuts. Cause like I'm familiar with the laws here, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, states that are close to us that we would have to extradite to and from. So I'm familiar with their laws, but I know that laws like in California are completely different than the laws that I'm used to. And I guess it's different everywhere. And I don't see how that makes any sense for anybody, honestly, because how do you know how to protect yourself? Especially, it's like the ability to protect yourself from, say, types like Michelle. It hasn't caught up in most places. Like you can't go to your police department. They recommend you go to that person's police department. That person's police department doesn't care. I mean, it's a mess.
That's why they get away with it. And that's why Katie Joy gets away with her mouth, because Minnesota is very, very serious about taking away another person's rights. And she has been able to take advantage of that ad nauseum, and that's what it's going to come down to. 7M sticking to what they're saying, because she said such sick and insensitive things about so many people. And it, it's funny because she gets away with it. She's not a popular person. Nobody out here really even knows about her. She lives in a very rural area, so she can come and go to the grocery store anywhere she wants, and nothing that's happened on the internet will even ever affect her. So her going to the courthouse and having, if there is people watching, is going to be a huge shocker, because she's been able to do all of this and never feel any of the pressure except for online, and she's an online bully, so she doesn't care.
Well, I
She
know
seems to thrive on it.
were you around when she blamed her neighbors? Um, she called the police and tried to have her neighbors charged with a hate crime. Were you around for that?
Well, I almost built my house 5 doors down from her. I didn't know.
Thank God.
And then when somebody boxed her address, I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds really familiar. What the? And I went into the old papers for that, because the housing thing went through. They didn't put the right number of bedrooms up in the top floor and everything. So when we went to inspect, we were like, wait a minute, 1, 2, 1, 2, what? Where is the third fucking bedroom? So, we got our money back and everything from that. But thank God I would have lived 5 doors down from the bitch.
Oh yeah, she's had horrible problems with her neighbor, her next door neighbor, because her dogs would go out there and bark and bark and bark and then jump the fence and go running around the neighborhood.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. Well, one day she was out there and her dog was carrying on, and the neighbor was out there, and the neighbor was like, look, you need to bring your dogs in or have them shut up, because what she would do is put them outside so they would not bark in the house so she could make videos.
Well, just like she has her husband watch her kid, so
right.
Her husband goes and screams at her kid.
Exactly. And so then the dogs would be outside driving the neighbors crazy. Well, that particular day when the neighbor was telling her to bring the dog back inside, Todd, I guess, went running outside and got in his face. And the neighbor's wife called the police, and the police came out there, and she got online and made a video after this happened and was boo-hoo crying, talking about, and they don't like us because I have a rainbow flag, and they committed a hate crime by destroying my rainbow flag. And do you want to see it? And she goes to show this flag that she had shown 3 months before, that was in the exact same shape as it was 3 months before. So everybody knew she was lying. And then her neighbor popped up on the Reddit channel, on the Reddit that was about her. So yeah, that
what the neighbor say?
Said that she was nuts and that never happened. They had no part of that. That the spat that day was over her barking dogs. That they've always had problems with them. That was when it came out that Todd likes to go in the woods and do, rituals and wear a cape and build fires, and that the neighbor kids are scared of him. And
well, and see, I would believe that, because, okay, so where she's at, like I'm talking about these rural areas, it's really weird the way that we are out here in suburbia, is that these new housing things will come and they'll take over, this farmland that this farmer wants to get rid of or whatever, and put, 180 houses on 1 acre, and they're next to these other houses, and then it's all bordered by, barren land that's never been touched by humans. And that's what's going on where she is now. She's in an older thing, like her house, I think, is like 10 to 12 years older. It's there and it's original, and the new houses are being built. And one of the reasons I love that, is because my son, who loves to fish, he goes out to that area often. And I mean, there's eagles' nests, there's beautiful snowy owl. Well, I don't know if they're snowy owls, or white owls, but just huge owls just sitting there. And it's very, very rural. Now, his backyard per se would go to that development. Now, if he walked out just a little bit, yeah, it's where all of the new homes were now built. That so I don't know where he could, unless I mean it would be a hop, skip, and a jump for him to go to somewhere that is abandoned and do what he's rumored of doing. Because I have heard that, and I've looked out there and I've been like, well, now where would he do it? I mean,
I'm
there's a
not sure, but
park
I've seen
near
her
there. I
walking.
don't know.
She's made videos where she's walking a dog every now and then when people are like, do you ever take care of your dog? She'll do this, whatever. And when she goes walking, there doesn't seem to be, wherever her neighborhood is, there's like not a neighborhood right next to her.
See, that's
So I think
it's an
that's where
illusion.
he's going. Oh, it's an illusion?
Yeah, because the way that hers is
Ah.
that you turn in and you go down, and then so like 2 blocks in there'd be like a cul-de-sac. Okay. So the
Right.
cul-de-sac is where they're building the new, where it's all been desolate before. So where she's at is populated on that block right there. But then, she could easily go, a block either way. If she goes up another block, there's a park and things like that. If she goes across the street, literally it sticks and it sticks and it sticks. So she can go, she doesn't have to walk far to make it look like she is in the middle of nowhere, and she actually is. I loved the area, but and I think they actually do. Do you remember if the police did it have a policeman that came out? Was it from Rockford, or did they have the Wright County Sheriff come out?
The Wright County Sheriff came out.
Okay, that's the ones I'm talking about. It's just when you're bored, I know that you have the history in law enforcement. Check out the Wright County Sheriff and look at how much they have to deal with in the land. They have to deal with the massive amount.
I have looked them up because she did a video. I did some research into them because she did another video where she claimed that they came out because somebody had made threats against her son or some BS like that. But the man that she showed in the picture, to me, looked photoshopped. So I went to see if I could find information about their uniforms. And sure enough, that was not their uniforms.
Really?
So she had basically photoshopped.
Yeah, because our sheriff's the Wright County. What color does she have? What does she do?
He was wearing a green uniform with a yellow patch.
Yep, not Wright County.
Exactly. It looked like our sheriff's department, the county below ours, sheriff's department. And I was like, that can't be that close, that similar to our sheriff's department's uniforms. And so I looked it up and I'm like, no, that's not them. But I started looking into the sheriff's department because I'm like, they've got to be fed up with her. Because at one point, that particular time, she had made it out like they had come out there. They showed up to my house in SWAT gear and blah, 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 blah. Well,
oh God,
she was
bullshit.
talking about a bulletproof vest. All officers wear bulletproof vests if the agency has the money to give them to them. All of them. It has nothing to do with SWAT. But in
Most
her head,
people,
she was that's SWAT, and they were blah. Just
she's such an idiot, and like I say, I mean, and the sheriffs here, I have so much respect for them. They are amazing for what they have to do. Of course, you got your few that are assholes, but for the most that I have dealt with, they are amazing with the massive workload that they have. And when I've had to have them over here, more than once, it's like I'm offering them my living room and my, make them coffee, whatever, I'm like, please, please, I'm so sorry you have to come out to our neighborhood for this, can you please come in, you can have my home to call it your own while you're here, and they're always excellent, and just like I say, it just is so amazing, and they would not assault anybody. I mean, they're trained to not engage because they're dealing with a lot of people, and a lot of people who are rural and have guns and stuff. So what she's saying is ridiculous. Now, if you pull a Katie Joy on them and you start engaging them and you start trying to act like, you're Katie Joy of the internet and they're the Wright County Sheriff, your argument's going to get cut down real close, and you might be a guest of their new hotel if you don't watch your mouth. But
she acts like she runs things, and it's very obvious that she doesn't.
She doesn't. Hi, Paula. Hi, Star Mama. Hi, Holly. Congratulations to your daughter and her track things. Holly is a gorgeous, badass mama who runs, and I watch her vicariously because I don't risk exercise of any kind. And so I look at her and she's just gorgeous, got this gorgeous hair, gorgeous kids. I love her. Star Mama, she gets on and she cooks up. And I mean, you just want to be right there in her dining room. It is everything that you remember from your childhood, where you have grandma cook you something up, where she's going to make the dinner and the dessert. And I was trying to write down one of her recipes for chocolate cake once, and I couldn't get it because to her, she knows it. She's got it like down like this. She's like, you just do 2 cups of this, 2 cups of that, and one of this. I'm like, hold, please. I need to take them.
What are these 2
Now,
cups
what
of what?
kind of cocoa are you talking about? And at what point do you put it in? But I'm trying to get better at my cooking. So I love my Paula Nichols. Paula Nichols and Holly have been with me since day one. They have seen me, take everything, for what it is, because when I started with Watts content, I started in the controversial aspect of showing the truth and showing that men can be victims of domestic violence. Now, that was not the way the rhetoric nor the tragedy pimps wanted it to go. They wanted to go just like everybody else. And if I would have went on and been like, oh, poor Shanann, oh, Chris Watts is a monster, then, I'd be at like 38,000 subs. But you know what? I did it in the right way, the way that I'm comfortable with putting out more truth out there, because I was not comfortable with the way that I was viewing things and being told. So I went down there, got deep, read that discovery, because I was in the big freaking immobilizer sling after my rotator cuff surgery. So I couldn't write or type or anything. So I could read the discovery. So I kept my content going. And as you were talking, Possum Wrangler, and Star Mama will know that, we're please everybody sub up to Possum Wrangler. As you can hear, she's amazing. She's worldly. She can define things in a way that you understand them. She understands law enforcement. She understands life. She's there. She is that big sister you wish you had, and she is not going to judge you. So as I was talking to myself, and I didn't know that I didn't have the mic on, I said I wouldn't be surprised if Possum Wrangler would be open to receiving emails too for people who are feeling lost and hurt.
Absolutely.
I think that there is so much hurt out here, and as you said, when I told you that, I think that one of the best things that's going to come out of this is that you're going to be an amazing a creator that's going to come out of this and say, hey, I started with this shit show here, and here I am. And you said, oh, I don't have this, I have this, and this and that. How can one be the other? Well, if you look at me, and how can I go from yogurt bowls to Chris Watts to Michelle to making a meal for my family? Well, I don't know, but I do. And I'll tell you that my life now is like this because my family's happy that I have this channel, because they don't like talking Deepak, I'm victim shaming. They know, and they're glad I have a channel because they're so sick of my things. But my husband walks in with the mail. Star Mama, you're gonna crack up. Deepak, you're gonna crack up. Paula, you're gonna crack up. My husband walks in with the mail today, and he goes, look, this is a thing from our homeowners for a status meeting. You can read it. I promise I am not paying the homeowners dues. Please do not think that I've not made a payment just because you see this piece of mail from the homeowners association. Now, so Possum Wrangler, I'll tell you. So that was one of the things, is that Shanann was not paying the homeowners association or the mortgage or anything that Chris was working hard to provide, because she wanted to fund these vacations that she looked like she was earning, but she wasn't. She was buying those vacations. All that and more is in all of the content that I prove. But people who glean my channel and the haters will be like, oh my God, you must be one of those women who send pictures of your boobs to Chris Watts and you're a Watts lover. No, I'm laying it out that our system is set up that right now more than one person behind bars, in fact, about, what's the estimate, 40,000 people or so, are completely innocent. Now, innocent in the innocent sense or innocent by the letter and definition of the law are two different things.
Are two different things.
Two very different things. But I do believe that if Chris Watts would have had a trial, he would have been basically an OJ, not been able to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I laid it all out, and it's all in there. And so as my hooker friend, my bistitual hooker friend says here, that you can go from thing to thing because you're a multi-dimensional talented being. Thank you. You're talking about me. I know, right? What I'm doing is I'm diversifying my content, and the haters want to come for me, but then they have a problem because I can say, hey, look, I have a lot of life experience. I can speak to this. So when you want to come at me for this and you want to come at me for that, let's go. Here's how I feel. Here's my video. Can you please expound on how you feel now? And I don't get the fight back once I lay it down, and I'm always open to questions. I'm not open to criticism on my channel and then letting it look like a coup and stuff, and people will be like, I have a right to my opinion. Well, go fuck your opinion, because opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
Everybody has them.
Everyone has one, and everybody who has a username like this, they can create their own content too. So if someone wants to school me on how to do my content when I go to theirs and they don't have any videos, well, just like Christine, who I showed you, I'm like, she's on my voice when she looks like that. What the? Come on, I mean, so that's where, exactly, Paul. I'll booby shots at our age. Yeah, I'd have to, like, when I flash my husband, I'm walking out to the mailbox or whatever, I just lift my shirt a little bit. My boobs are on my waistline. The neighbors just think that, I'm lifting up my shirt a little bit, adjusting my waist, but no, I'm flashing my husband. That's it.
Oh, how I understand that. 4 kids later, and yeah, things don't sit
6
where they
kids
used
later.
to.
Yeah, that they're not there at all. And oh my God, I can actually do this party trick now. Hold on just a second, please. Yes. Yeah, everything's good. I got it. Thank you. I can do this party trick now. It's great because I'm always so freaking hot, right? And so I keep going around. I'm like, I have a fever. I know I have a fever. I'm like, something is wrong. It's not a hot flash. And I got the thermometer. And the little, the one that goes for the forehead. I got that for COVID, right? And so I do that on my forehead. I'm like 97 degrees. I'm like, there's no way I'm 97 degrees. I'm like, okay. I lift up under the boob and I can show
Lord.
you 102.3. So I can be 97 on my forehead and 102.3, and I can run around the house and terrorize the kids and my husband with this party trick now. And they're like, hey, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And I'm like, you don't understand. When we were kids, we'd have to put the thermometer on the
On the light bulb.
heater. So now all I have to do is do the under the tent, and I can get out of anything. Look at my temperature. I can't go to the movie theater. Help.
I'm too hot. I'm dying.
I'm too hot.
We call that swamp titties down here because Florida is horrendous for yeah. Everything gets swampy. It is not fun. Not at all.
We have the humidity too, and I'm not used to that. So I'm getting, those terrible cuts underneath and everything. So I'm putting coconut oil and everything on, and lavender and a powder. And I'm just like, how the hell do people deal with this swamp stuff?
Natural
it doesn't even. What kind? Because if it has any fragrance, it's gonna make the rash worse.
No, I use charcoal. It's charcoal by Native. I think Native makes it. Yeah, it's
and
just
that
charcoal.
Does not cause a rash.
There's no funky smells, no nothing. It does look funny because it's black, but it doesn't roll on black. It's clear when it rolls on. And I use it everywhere, behind my knees, under my boobs, because everywhere here you get, swampy. It's gross. And I don't want to be swampy.
Oh, yeah.
It then breaks your skin down and you end up with a rash and with cuts and with all of that fun stuff. And those things hurt.
Oh, really God, they hurt so bad. Even getting in the pool or in the bath and everything, I'm just like, oh my God, it hurts so bad. And, it is.
And the more you sweat, the worse it hurts because it's salty going into open wound.
Yes, it is exactly that. And so, the nurse, she's like, do you have old socks or anything. She's like, you might just want to put some old socks on there. I'm like, shit, I'll put like 6 to 12 and no one can even tell because, I'll have to lift up my boobs and I've got a load of laundry. Oops. Like what?
Whoopsie daisy.
I mean, I'm just like, I cannot, but you know what? And okay, I do like the deodorant Lumi, but it smells like the smells you're trying to avoid in your butt. It smells so bad when it comes out of the tube. Have you smelled it? Have you gotten Lumi?
I bought a thing of Lumi because they did not have my native the last time I went to the store, and I had run out. Normally I order on Amazon, but I was like, okay, well, they have Lumi here, which is unusual, so I'll try it. It didn't work for me. The fragrance that I got smelled great. It was like a citrus smelling stuff, but it didn't
Did you
work.
get it at Target? Did you get it at Target or Amazon?
Walmart.
Okay, yeah, they have the peony rose and the citrus at Target, right? Because I've been using it for a few years. But if you have any breakdown in your skin or any type of a yeast cheese, that is going to make you scream and it's going to make the rash 10 times worse. So if your skin is actually in good shape and you can do everything to prevent, Lumi is great. But like I say, when you put that little pea thing on, the little because the lavender and stuff, you put just a little
See, I
pea
think I
size
need
amount.
to try the cream, because what I tried was
Yes.
the actual like bar of deodorant.
Okay, so with the deodorant, all I do is I'll turn the thing and I will take off the cream, from the little holes from the deodorant that's going to go, and take those and then put those where I think that I'm going to sweat too. So I use it the same, because I've been using it as the cream tubes anyway. And I think that, the tube, the little tube, the trial size things are great because you can put one in your purse and whatnot, but it is an absolute preventative. Like I say, if you can stay ahead of it where you never even need it, so you won't, like, if you can stay ahead of that sweat with it, then great. But if you, like I say, you have any skin breakdown,
See,
do not.
It took me a while. I had to detoxify my body before the native with charcoal would actually work. Because it's not an antiperspirant. And living in Florida in the middle of summer, growing up, you don't want to smell like a stinky monkey. And so back then,
Right.
when I was growing up, that's what you used. And for, I would say, a good 6 months, it didn't work the way I wanted to. But I had read that I needed to let the whatever get aluminum, I think is what's in the antiperspirant, get out
Right.
of my body. And so it finally started working. But I've been using the same kind for 3 years now. And so when I switched to Lumi, I noticed that it was not working as well. Like I had to reapply it 2 or 3 times a day, because it's not the sweat so much that it was bothering me, but like when I sweat in Florida, it's stinky. It doesn't smell good. And I
Right.
don't like the way it smells. So with the charcoal one, there's no scent at all. Like you don't smell a deodorant scent and you don't smell a stinky scent. You just smell nothing. So I wasn't used to A, smelling any kind of scent, and B, I was like, why am I smelling like stinky citrus? So
Well, and see now, my friend, well, you just showed how you're going to do your content. Do a short, put that up there, put that product, what you're using, and do a short and be like, hey, girls, you want to get away from that aluminum and you want something that's going to work, and you have to train yourself to get your whole thing in under 15 seconds for those shorts, but
now
do
the
that.
shorts, I've been able to do a couple of them. There's a couple of Pete on my channel. And what I need to upload is I have a neighborhood owl that has been visiting me for like, I don't know, the past 6 years. And
Yeah.
she'll fly down to where I am and sit down about 2 feet from me.
Yes.
And it took a long time. It took me almost 3 years to even get a picture of her, because she knew when I took the camera out. It seemed like she knew. I'm sure she didn't really know. But then
They know.
she finally was like, okay, well, I'm going to let you film me. So I have, 15 to 30-second shorts up on TikTok of her. And I have a lizard that lives on my porch that likes to get on the edge of my Coca-Cola can and drink Coca-Cola.
Oh, yes.
So those things, I know how to do that stuff. I think for me, like the way that my husband's 100% disabled and I am his caregiver, is how it's labeled, because his PTSD affects him so much that like remembering appointments or remembering to take medication every day is a huge a huge issue for him. He has a really hard time of it.
Right.
And so for those reasons, I'm his caregiver, not because his disability is his heart and he's got a pacemaker defibrillator. It was placed when he was 26 years old. He collapsed in a cardiac arrest.
Oh my God.
And it took a while actually for the military to acknowledge that they were the root of the problem. And in fact, they didn't even acknowledge that, just that he had been seen in the infirmary 7 different times with chest pain. And for each of those times, they said, oh, you're dehydrated. Here's some Gatorade and go back to your unit. So all 7 of those times were 7 different times. And when he collapsed, he was here. Thank God. But I watched my husband collapse in a cardiac arrest. And I thought I was, I had been married 2 years at that point.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd lost my husband forever. We had a very new baby. Our youngest was 4 months old. So I'm his caregiver. So I had to figure out a way to continue making money for our household. So I sell collectibles and antiques and vintage things that I find at thrift stores, at yard sales, all over the place, really. And that's how I make money. And I know some people are really interested in that and seeing what has value, because a lot of times it surprises people, the stuff they just have laying around their house even that has value. So I'm like, okay, how do I incorporate that with my animals? Like, but a lot of what I do over and above what covers our household bills goes into the animals that I rescue. So I can tie those two together. So it's like trying to figure out what my place is, because yeah, I do like to, be involved in others' chats, and there's creators that I really enjoy. Emily D. Baker was the first creator that I ever actually had a membership for. I don't know if you know who she is.
Oh, I love her because I'm a fan of the cursey words too.
Yes. I have her very first merch that said, it was a sweatshirt that said facts, not fuckery.
I love him.
I have worn it so much that all it says now is T fuckery.
Well, I said him. I love her.
But I've been with her since she had less than 5,000 subscribers. I mean, she was tiny. And then the Toddy Westbrook case happened, and like the worlds merged, because prior to the Toddy Westbrook case, she was my, I don't want to deal with KJ's BS today, hear it on Twitter or on YouTube or anywhere else. And I would go and listen to Emily, because Emily had no involvement. And then suddenly the worlds collided, and it was like, oh, this is horrible, because, she went after Emily, and Emily doesn't play, and she wasn't playing with her either, which everybody adored.
Katie went after Emily?
Oh my gosh, yes.
What?
She tried to.
I missed this chapter.
She made this huge deal and was going to have Emily disbarred and blah, 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 because Emily had access to documents before she had access to documents, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was a huge, huge deal in the middle of the Toddy Westbrook case.
Okay, I missed that. I'm just so
go back
in the
watch.
way that she. Okay, I will, because you see, as a local, I see some of the things that she says that are so misleading, and how she says she's affected by this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And so, I spoke to that, I think in the Mexican standoff, where they talk about the St. Michael guy who his wife was enabling and buying all those guns from.
Yes.
Anybody who'd put him up on Facebook or anywhere, she would just run on out and get him. And our town was under siege and stuff. And she said that she was affected by it. No, she would have had to have driven into it. And then the other student, she said that, it was right by her kids. There's no way it was by her or her school. And, I just laugh at the things that she
like when she was her, what was it? Her niece is best friends with George Floyd's fiance or something like that. And her niece and nephew are Black, and so that was affecting her. And I was like, lady, do you have to try to make yourself the victim in every single situation? I don't understand that. Why can't you
don't either.
Why can't you just stand with the individuals that are going through something. It's that's what
Yeah.
baffles me the most about her. And it baffles me about Michelle too, because like, for example, my nephew, how I was telling you, I love my nephew with my whole entire heart. But the trauma that
Yes.
he went through and that his mother went through, that's not my trauma. That is their trauma. And what my job is to love them through it, support them through it, and make a change in any way I can to prevent that from happening to anybody else. But it's still not my trauma. I don't get to claim that. Even as much as I love the both of them, I don't get to claim that. And I don't see how others feel like every situation they need to make themselves the victim of. It doesn't matter what you said to it, what anybody said to Katie Joy. She was, it was worse for her. You know, she was a victim of the Catholic cult. Okay, Katie, whatever, you
Oh
know.
my God.
It's like, are you kidding me? I don't, I can't, I can't understand it because I've never been that way. I have always been the type of person that will support the person that has been victimized, hurt, traumatized, whatever, and in any way possible that I can affect change so that that doesn't happen to somebody else, I will do that. But I would never, ever, especially when somebody is going through it, even if I have gone through the same thing, I would never try to compare my situation with what they're going through because they are in the moment. I have had whatever amount of time to work through my issue, to acknowledge whatever, where this person is in the middle of it. So how can you claim victimhood when they are the victim? You know, whether you've experienced a similar situation or not. Obviously, it's not going to be the exact same situation. Katie is a white lady, you know, living in the suburbs in a huge house that was partially paid for, just the whole thing. It's like she
Okay.
doesn't
Who
acknowledge her privilege.
Oh, hold on just a second. Holly, honey, if you go over to my community page right now, I have a link where I had just put into uh I put for this my other creator I love Tragic Wise. And I put the link to one of the Michelle videos that I just did, and it should be linked to the whole playlist where I have the 26, 20, I'm at 27, 28 full videos that I've done on Michelle. Now, we're going to be mentioning Michelle in and out through this, and we're going to get through more topics in the panels that Possum Wrangler and I are doing are because Michelle, as you'll see through these videos, is so flippant and disgusting in the way that she talks about horrible, sensitive issues and laughs at them because she's caused all of this, this immense pain and whatnot. And that's where you're going to see it. So please go to my community page. If you don't see it there, go to my playlists. I've done everything linked into playlists now so they continue. So while you listen to them while you sleep, they don't stop. Then when you won't wake up, I just keep talking. And then the Possum Wrangler, that's the thing is that there's a difference between empathizing and inserting. And those that
Exactly.
insert are doing so because they are opportunistic and want to get financial or other gain from trying to insert themselves. Now, if Katie Joy would have walked her ass down to those protests and gotten in the middle of it and said, hey, this is affecting me, because do you know how many pieces she would have been in? Because they, you know what? Our whole area, our whole state was under siege because there were people who were hurting for years and years from what the cops had been able to get away with, and especially in that area. And when I talked about, when I just did the video about Derek Chauvin, Chauvin, isn't it funny that his last name is literally the beginning of the word chauvinistic? And he is just that chauvinistic cop, that good old boys club. When he has his neck in George Floyd's, or when he has his knee in the neck of George Floyd's, when he is doing that, he's staring back at the girl yelling at him, saying, please stop. He's looking her in the eye, pushing his knee down more and more. Now, the guy in the background of Asian descent, that's his brother-in-law. So while his wife right now is going down for the tax evasion that Derek Chauvinistic and his wife were committing. Yeah, they were there, and the brother-in-law, the whole family was profiting an awful lot of money. And I don't think that people know these things in the backstory. And like I said, George Floyd worked with Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin was the head of the security at the club, so he essentially was hiring George Floyd to work his shifts. They knew each other. They were very familiar with each other.
And see,
And that is not well known.
that's what I think that a lot of people don't, like for me, a lot of people don't understand my stance. I back the blue, but there is a huge difference between an individual that goes into law enforcement because they want to affect change and they want to make the community
Yes.
that they live in a safer place, and those that go in because they think they're Billy Badass and they have
Yep.
something to prove to themselves, I think. And I am, from the South, where I can promise everybody that there is still a good old boys network, but
Yes.
there's good and bad in every field. There's good
Yes.
and bad military men. There are good and bad police officers. There are good and bad judges. There are good and bad attorneys. There are good and bad in everything. And you need to make yourself, you need to educate yourself what you're looking at and what you're listening to, and people will give themselves away if they talk long enough. You can
Oh,
listen to
yes.
a police officer who, like, my dad was a cop, but my
Right.
dad will tell the stories that he tells are of busting people with pot and making them put it in the drain, and versus arresting
Right.
them because he didn't
Right.
feel like that was really something that needed to be behind bars for, and that was 40 years ago.
Right.
So what his reasoning for becoming a police officer is because he was born and raised in this town and he wanted to make sure it stayed a safe place for his family. It wasn't about separating bad versus good people. I don't even know how to explain it, but you can listen to a police officer and when they're telling stories even of what they did on the job, and you can pick out the clues that will point out to you what type of a police officer that individual is. And like I sent you an email earlier talking about it, that I had sworn I would never ever marry a police officer or a man in uniform, period, because I had witnessed too much bad. I had
Right.
been, I had gone round and round when I was still working in law enforcement with the officers that I worked with. Like, look, if your wife calls in to the comm center and I answer the phone and you've told her that you're on extra duty or whatever and you're not, I'm not lying. I'm not
Good
getting in
for
the middle of
you.
it. And they were like, oh, so if Carter's working, then we don't, because that's what they called me. They called me by my maiden last name back then. They're like,
Right. Right.
if Carter's working, we're not doing this because she'll rat us out. And they respected me for it. But at the same time, they were horrible dogs. And I knew that. So I didn't want any part of that. And I swear my husband sprinkled fairy dust on me because, Marine Corps, that to me was the worst of the worst. And but he wasn't like that. But I saw very quickly as a military spouse that there were two camps of men. There were these men that went into the military, men and women that went into the military because they had a bad childhood or a broken home, and they were looking for a family and they were looking to make something better for themselves and their
Right.
future. And then there were men and women that went in because they wanted to go kill somebody. And that to me is sick. That is not a reason to choose any career. But my husband had several in his unit that felt that way. And he's like, babe, I don't understand that. Because the thought of that to me, you know, thinking of that constantly, like that's your whole purpose for existence, it makes me nauseous. I didn't want to see anybody. He said, you go, they were deployed in Iraq. And he's like, there's these adorable little children running around. And all you can think is this child still going to be here tomorrow? You know, am I going to have some involvement in this child not being here tomorrow? Is somebody I know going to have some involvement in that? Is it going to be the opposite side that is the reason for that? He said, but you see these kids and they come running up to you and they want candy or they want this and they want that. And
Yeah.
the group of guys that I hung around with, we would keep candy in our pockets to give to them or change in our pockets to give to them. He said, but then there was the other group of guys that were just nasty and would like kick dirt on them. And the superiors wouldn't do anything. And he's like, I can't, I just can't, I don't understand that way of thinking.
Well, when I was in school too, it's like, we studied it, and it was that, okay, there are studies that show that, if you as a female, as you just stated, if you as a female came in and you stated that, hey, I'm not going to co-sign on your cheating ass behavior, saying that you're doing this. You know what? I'm a woman. I am a wife. I respect the badge. You are a civil servant. You will be doing your job. And if you're using your job to lie to your wife, I am not going to be a part of that. I am not going to be in the good old boys club. Your career would have been very short. You would have been targeted. You would have been assigned somewhere else, or assigned to not that department or not that job. That it was shown and proven over again, especially in the 80s and 90s, where if you were a member of the good old boys club, if you were willing to not do your job well, do the job that they wanted, that they knew that you would cover for them,
Yep.
you had a job and you were secure. And that was my experience from my horrible stepfather, who, like I say, it's just terrible because he looks exactly like Koberger. He went to the same law enforcement school there in Wazoo. He had the same apartments there. So it was really tough for me when when he comes and whatnot, and it's tough. And those that know me from long ago, write me on Facebook and something like, oh my god, he looks just like your evil ass stepdad. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And and he got into it to be a bully. He was a scrawny ass man, and he became a scrawny ass Barney Fife, and like you say, your dad got into it to make it, more accessible, and to be that person who's in the community involvement. He would have put the marijuana in the drain. Well, my stepdad was the one who would have convicted them for marijuana and thrown an assault against an officer and a trespass and everything else charge on it, and made sure that person never saw the light of day, and his whole family would suffer, and we couldn't talk to them. I mean, it was that. But what was he doing behind the scenes? He began raping me at age 8, and I live a lifetime of injury, and because of all of the things that were done to me at that age. And so it's like my mom was a victim of domestic violence. We were calling the cops all the time and being rescued in the night. So it was more convenient for her to get one as a live-in, and she didn't care. She didn't notice that he liked me much more than her. I was 8. My stepdad was 24. She was like 28 or 29, and she was interested in much younger men. So she was having all of her affairs, and not honoring my husband, not honoring her husband at all. And so I said, my husband, I just totally slipped up, because that's the way that it felt, is that I was the young wife. I had to care for my siblings. I had to keep the house immaculate and be subjected to everything that he did to me. And he was coming within, he would beat me so severely that I was sure I was not going to live. And I knew his friends and the good old boys were going to cover for it, because he had them all convinced that I was this wayward youth. And my mom and him were going to that tough, what do you call it, that tough love or whatever shit that was in the 80s. And they had everybody convinced that I was just this
Mm.
demon child. And and nothing could be further from the truth. I was a traumatized 8-year-old, because of all that I'd seen and whatnot. So I had to grow out of that, and I went into, when nursing didn't work out because of my extreme latex allergy, et cetera, et cetera, I just continued going to school to keep my mind going. So that's why I have a bachelor's in criminal justice and a bachelor's in psychology, but I've not worked in the field because of my physical limitations. But I went to school because I kept trying to search in criminal justice to find, where is it written that what he did was right? Where is it written that the way that he would do this? Because he would drop me. He would grab this ligament inside next to my neck on my right. He would grab there, and he would drop me, and he said it was okay, it was legal for him to do that, because it was a police maneuver to control his subjects, and I was one of his subjects or whatever. So by having that done to me by the age of 8, when I finally just had this, because I'd had this terrible shoulder pain, this bad shoulder all of my life, when I just had this finally fixed, the surgeon was just, he couldn't believe all the damage in there. My bursa was squished. My ligaments in there were all enmeshed. There was this big gap, where this bone spur was, and had been cutting the ligaments and everything in it. So it was no question why I couldn't use my right arm, for long periods of time. I finally got it fixed. But, some of those childhood things last a lifetime. But everybody saw him as that wonderful cop. And I see that in that Derek Chauvin is they thought that he was this wonderful cop. And they were all, thinking that he was the top dog and he was running the nightclubs in town and he had all this. You don't dare question him. And so when he fell, that took down the whole inner city structure of police. And that's why I say is that right now, you can get shot at by gang members because they don't even respect the police. So because of those good old boys, those chauvinists, they ruined it and they hurt the safety for the blue
The
as a
public.
whole. So
Yes.
the blue, I back the blue 100%. But I can say I have this abuse history and I can see a dirty cop when I see one and
Exactly.
call them for that. Now, and then people will say that, oh, I'm a racist or I'm doing this or whatever if I say I back the blue. And I was like, you know what? Listen to what I've been through. Then tell me how the fuck I'm a racist. Tell me. Because if you support the blue, then you're a racist. And it's like, you know what? Our society is going to be a tyranny. We're going to have absolute anarchy unless people start looking at police reform and the good ones like your dad and what you went in there for restorative justice. We need to look at the bigger
Yep.
picture, the bigger families. And as we're going back to Michelle, we need to look at this generation of drug addicted children that come out of the womb not knowing right from wrong because they've been subjected to brain damage at the hands of their mom. And didn't you say that your friend had a baby who was
My nephew was adopted out of foster care. She brought him home from the hospital where the chicken, we call her the chicken, had to be strapped down to deliver him. And as soon as she was unstrapped, she ran from the hospital because she knew that she was facing abuse charges because he was born addicted to so many substances and he was premature. He was teeny tiny. He weighed 3 pounds, 6 ounces when he was born, I believe. And when he came home at just over 4 pounds. He was like 4 pounds, 5 ounces. And he's got a lifetime of issues that he is having to deal with. And she's having to help him navigate. He is on the spectrum. He's legally blind, but the thing with that is it's a genetic retinoschisis. Juvenile retinoschisis is what it's called, and it's genetic. So her father, the chicken's father, had it. My nephew's older brother, so her older son, has it. And instead of giving that information up, this information was discovered when when my nephew was taken to the ER, believing he had RSV. And the doctor's like, well, no, it's not RSV, it's a cold, but there's something up with his eye. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? And the doctor's like, there's something wrong here. We need to figure this out. And what it was is his retina had detached. So he has been every 3 months for his entire life. He'll be 4 in September. He's had to go to Miami from here, which is several hours away, and be basically manhandled so they can examine his eyes and do all of these things to try and save an eye, and to the point that he's traumatized. Anytime a doctor gets near him, he screams now. It doesn't matter if it's just for a regular checkup because he, you know, just a regular 6-month checkup. Any doctor, period, comes near him and he screams because he's so traumatized. And had that information been made available to his mother prior to it being discovered as already starting to decline, it could have been something that was prevented. The decline could have been something that was prevented. But at that point, he was 6 months old and it had been ongoing his entire 6 months of life. And so he was 6 months behind the whatever. And so now it's the poor child he's very rigid in his routines. He has a very small circle of people who he loves. And if you are in his circle, you are his world. But if you're not, then he wants nothing to do with you. He started pre-K3 this year in a medical special needs class. because he has both medical disabilities and he's not neurotypical. So just the thought of putting him in school, which his mom is a teacher and education is her thing. She's a special needs teacher, actually. Well, the thought of putting him in school had her in such a panic that she was considering quitting her own job. And she's a single mom because she couldn't see him being okay in a classroom. Thankfully, his teacher this year is going to be his teacher for the next 3 years, and he worships the ground she walks on. But when she's out of school, if she goes on a vacation or if she's out for a day, his mom has to arrange care for him because he won't go to school. Like, he'll go, obviously, but when he gets there and his teacher is not there, it's a breakdown. He has a complete breakdown and gets a call to come home. So she has to make arrangements for him to have care when his teacher's not going to be there. It's going to be a lifetime of maneuvering because of things